All right. Well, today I've got Roland with me. So I've known Roland Cavanagh for, I think, if I look at the calendar right, somewhere around 17 years. He came
That'll,
in to do continuous improvement for a company that I was working for. And I actually turned into a groupie from that and was just fascinated. It was the first time I'd ever heard of Lean or Six Sigma, and really just started pestering him on a monthly basis, asking for a new stack of books to read. So today I'm talking to Roland, and we're going to be talking through some different questions, specifically for COVID-19 and how that changes the way we do work, and how it changes the way we look at Six Sigma and Lean and continuous improvement in general. So thanks for being on, Roland.
you're welcome. Good to be here with you, Jason.
So let's start with a question around making work visible. So it's possible that a lot of organizations are currently making work visible in the office place by having whiteboards or whatever showing the work that's going to be done that day, showing sticky notes moving across the board. Maybe it's a spreadsheet, whatever it is. As we move to the remote world and everybody's in their homes, how do we continue with that remote work? And maybe for some people, even explain what remote work, what making work visible looks like and why we do it.
Yeah, so let me take a stab at that. I'll start with one of my views is that making work visible is really an element of 5S. So when you think about particularly things like shadow boxing, where you you have a tool board and every tool has a place that's outlined or is cut out in foam, and if it's missing, it's very obvious. That's a strong element of just making things very, very visible to everyone around. Is it here or not? When you get into looking at the work itself, interesting example I worked on with my son recently, who works for an aerospace company. They had a supply chain issue in getting parts for some of the repair work that they were doing, and the seemed like the fundamental problem was that things were hidden. And so what they did was shadow boxed the dismantled unit, so all the parts went into a slot here, here and there on this panel, and then it went over to the supply chain people with empty holes in the shadow box, and it was not allowed to come back until the holes were all filled, which now meant that it was ready for reassembly and testing. That was a profound difference from using their ERP type systems, where they were just indiscriminately counting. Well, we're 98% good on parts delivery, but we have 14 units that are all waiting for the same part.
Yeah.
So another example of visible work. What we tend to see more in office environments is being able to identify what work needs to be done. And so in many cases, we've set up just bins of work. In fact, even in this electronic age, there's been times when we've printed a cover sheet off of a document package or claim package or something, and actually put them in a bin in the work area. And the purpose of that partly is to get people up out of their chair once in a while, go get one, and to make it visible to all of the parties that they're each going up and getting another piece of work. And it's usually done in conjunction with a dry board. And so keeping score on a dry board, keeping score of what's come in and needs to be worked on, what's available is been completed, and even keeping track of who's at work today and any issues that might impact the ability to get the work done. Those dry boards have been proven very effective. And one of the important elements of these is that when a person comes up and makes their tick mark on the dry board indicating that they just finished another one, and they retrieve another piece of work, that physical action of holding the marker in their hand and making the tick mark is emotionally very important for the individual. And
So
that's
how does that relate to today's world where we don't have dry boards anymore? How do we replicate that in when everybody's at home?
Yeah, so that's a bit of a challenge. One technique that's used frequently is using an online spreadsheet or using a web page that can be updated, and that usually gives control to one person that is making the updates. So we lose the element of the individual getting their thumbprint on the marker as they complete their piece of work. Um, One technique that we did, actually we did this a long time ago before the internet was really capable of supporting the volume of data that we're pushing now. We had an organization that had basically a production board, and the solution for that, getting that information out to their remote locations, was to simply put a internet camera on it, and so it was always displayed on a particular URL, and we could see real time any changes that were made to it as they proceeded. Um, but again, the important element of that is that the person that completes the work needs to be able to make the change in the counts, to update the information on the board. And,
Okay.
you know, worst case, that means they get hold of somebody or they send them a note and say, hey, increment, this box by one. Then at least they've made the public statement of here's what I completed.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you and I have worked together on a lot of continuous improvement projects over the years. My background's more in data analysis and things like that. Do you see that as we move into this new remote working, how do we use data and continuous improvement to make ourselves better? What are those opportunities that we may not have had in the past that we do now?
Wow, that's a deep question. um, so, a basic tenet of Six Sigma, which is, where I've spent most of my continuous improvement career, is getting data. In God we trust, all others bring data. Been a favorite remark of mine. Um, as data has become more ubiquitous, we are able to get more information out of it. But that's the challenge: is taking this huge abundance of data. I mean, most companies have major CRM and ERP systems that have huge quantities of data in them, but find it very challenging to get actionable information out of it. But we're getting better at that now, and being able to combine data from different sources um, in ways that allow us to understand trends and directions, and then use that to make decisions and take action.
So my next question, I've been talking to a lot of continuous improvement people, and they're really thinking about how this new remote work changes what they do. So in the past, we've put people in a room and mapped out sticky notes of processes and really tried to uh, take people on an adventure to improve a process. Now that we got people working from home and we're working on technology, how does that change? What are some tools? What are some ideas that we can use to continue that continuous improvement growth that we've got in organizations right now?
Yeah, so let me respond to that first by talking about the background of many of these tools use. A very really important element of the tools that we use, even process mapping with stickies on the wall, is comes from, along in the 40s and 50s, from sociotech design, getting people's hands on the work and getting them together to make decisions. That evolved into the folks that developed Workout for GE, that really focused on, how do you manage the energy and the emotion and the interpersonal activities during these meetings or events or kaizens as they flow. And so the tools that we use, really all of the ones, even silent brainstorming and affinity and process mapping, are all tools that were very carefully designed to encourage people to interact and to interact fairly. So they're designed, for instance, silent brainstorming, designed to neutralize the loud voice and give an opportunity for the quiet person to have the same input, because they probably have value and we want to keep them included. These are elements that get lost when we put people on Zoom, for instance. We got 7 or 8 or 10 people, and we're trying to manage their interaction. We've lost the ability to, put people together, 2 people together, sidle up next to them, have a private conversation, get them back into the group. We've lost the ability to watch body language, the folks that have crossed their arms and, are clearly withdrawing or mad about something. And so we've got to figure out how to bring that back in, how to make that a part of it. A big one for me is making sure that we actually can see everybody, that we're not doing telephone meetings, because those allow all kinds of bad behaviors. But more than that, to actually emulate the design of a lot of these facilitative tools that we have, so that they can be, so the basic principles can be accommodated remotely.
Very good. Yeah, I think that's going to be something we learn for the next couple of years, how to make that happen. I don't think we're going to get it right. I think it's going to take a little time for us to figure it out.
Yeah, there's been a lot of attempts, and things like Google Docs and Office 365, and some of the other ones that are intended to be multiply collaborative, so people can work together hypothetically. But typically, you see the usual, imbalance in participation, things like that. That when we're facilitating a live meeting in person, we can manage and can get some balance.
So I work for a technology company, Far Reach, and so we go into companies and we help them design mobile apps, or we help them redesign work structures and processes using technology. So how do we design a website, for example, that captures work and moves work through an organization? How do we integrate multiple CRMs together? What are some examples you've seen in your work of technology driving efficiency?
Oh, wow. Every time we turn around, technology, is it driving efficiency, or is it supporting a more efficient process? I'll spin it the other way around, just because, I'm a strong believer in understanding what the elements of work are that need to be accomplished, and reducing it to only the things that add value, and then automating it, so that we get the efficiency from only doing the necessary bits, and then we further can make it, more streamlined by automating, so that we're not for instance, moving data from one point to another.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, I like that answer. Thanks for changing it around. I appreciate it. So I had somebody else ask me a question this week. I think everybody's a little bit on edge and worried about their job, they're worried about their company, they're worried about the economy and what this looks like. As we drive continuous improvement, how do we reassure people? And that, this is something we've done for years and years and years, but how do we reassure people throughout this process that we're not after their jobs, we're after creating a more efficient process and honestly just better understanding our customers to deliver the right thing? How do we reassure our employees through that process?
Wow, that's a loaded question. So this is one that I've wrestled with my entire consulting career because we get clients that clearly have an objective of reducing the workforce, and even if that is the objective, how you present it and how you manage the process can have significant impact on the willingness of people to be involved or the willingness of people to be involved in the future. So we typically we've learned and we counsel leaders that if there is, whatever the expected outcome is, needs to be communicated to everybody so that they're aware. If the expected outcome is that some of you won't be working here, tell them. And there will be a few that'll make martyrs out of themselves. There will be some that can be incented to contribute, and some that need to be incented to stay. But that's an easier process in the long run for the organization than keeping it a secret, doing some things that change the work, and then turn around and terminate a bunch of people, because you'll never get away with that the second time. And you'll end up with a rat's nest in the future.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Transparency is becoming a very normal attribute that we see in mission statements and vision statements in organizations. But whether or not they actually do that is another thing. So here's just another example of where it's necessary.
Yeah, and it all depends on what the desired outcome is. If in fact, we're going to try to become more efficient doing this kind of work so we can take on more of it, that's a great message to give out. If it's we're going to take on more, make this more efficient so that we can displace some folks to other areas where we need more capacity, that's a great message too. But as I said, even if the desired outcome is a reduction in force, it's way better to be honest about it, and because we've seen some awesome participation from people that know that at the end of this activity they're gonna be moving on, but they're willing to participate, and because they've been treated honestly.
Yeah, it's a great point. So, I've only been in continuous improvement for about 17 years now. But I've seen the lineage of continuous improvement, starting with all kinds of different theories and whatever throughout the ages. What are some of the pieces of all of that? Six Sigma and Lean and theory of constraints, and I'm sure it goes way farther back than that. What are the general keys to continuous improvement?
So, workout, for instance, it had three words. It was simplicity and self-confidence. Those were the primary directives that we always spoke about when we introduced workout to an organization. I believe those still hold true. Another element that we've already spoken a little bit about is participation, and participate, and then facilitating their participation so that they are so that they get equal time, and so everybody gets a chance to contribute. Because ultimately, what you'd like is collaborative solutions that are supported by all of the participants.
Yeah, that's great. So, what do you think are maybe some trends that are coming in continuous improvement that people should be on the lookout for?
Let's see. Um, a negative trend that we've been seeing recently, and it's always been present to a certain extent. A negative trend that we're seeing is to try to get things done faster and with fewer people, and even to the extent of reverting to more what I call the industrial engineer model, where there's one individual that's running around trying to design or redesign process and create efficiencies, et cetera, and then to try to implement those, even though everyone else is not involved and still skeptical about it. I think it's the two negative trends are speed and lack of involvement.
Yeah, that's a great point. Makes a lot of sense. Cool. Well, hey, Roland, thanks for your time today. I learned a lot, and I am sure everybody else will as well. I think that in this world, maybe we should do this again here soon, and we'll come up with some more questions, and let's just talk through this. Everything is changing so fast that a brand new conversation in a week will feel like 2 years ago. So, anything else you want to add? Tell us a little bit about your company too, as we kind of walk out, and how you can help people.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we've got a little boutique consulting firm, the Cavanagh Group, half a dozen associates that we've worked with for a long, long time, primarily focused around, as Jason has described, continuous improvement, building on and using workout and Lean and Six Sigma tools to help clients develop collaborative solutions to business problems. And we've been in many, many different industries and been doing this for a long time. And we, as we say in our tagline, um, with integrity and a sense of humor.
That's great. That's great. Cool. Well, thank you very much, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you, Jason. Nice chatting with you. Cheers.
Cheers.